This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
Lo and behold, movie and music fanatic Mark Shaver is back in the house. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good. We're here to talk about someone who, much like Michael Mann, kind of really developed my love of these various LA crime movies, and that is David Ayer. We are talking about his many cops and robbers and crooked cops and political corruption movies. Just there's so many, but we'll kind of skim through it. Many of these movies are very interesting. They use a lot of the same actors, Noah G, Terry Crews, Michelle Rodriguez, just all kinds of just very impossible to recognize at sometimes just actors, just very colorful characters. We'll kind of illustrate whether or not he's doing his own thing or whether he's kind of emulating the Tarantinos of the world. But what got you into a lot of these hard-boiled pot boilers?
The first film that I saw by him that really made me take notice of who he was would have been End of Watch.
Oh wow! Okay, so you were later on.
Yeah, I was a bit late, but the thing is, that's the first time I took notice of the guy's name and everything. But then when I looked back, because I thought, well, I mean, that movie was excellent, and I thought, well, let's see what else this guy's done. It said that he had, helped write Training Day and stuff, which,
yeah,
of course, I had seen that before, but I wasn't familiar that he had, helped write the screenplay or the script or whatever he did.
Unless it was Scorsese or Spielberg, we weren't always keeping track of the names at the end of the movie.
Well, right. I mean, by this time, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was well into directors and stuff, but like I had actually seen Harsh Times. I had seen that one before.
Right.
But I didn't notice, that was like 15, 16 or 14 years ago or something. So I didn't really notice at that time, even though I was already into like filmmakers that I took notice of. But if it was a film, I didn't always pay attention.
There's some profoundly evil people walking the streets right now. I don't handicap myself with rules.
You ain't no police. Stop that bull.
He can't be like this.
I'm the police. King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
You never know. That's the point.
Training Day, rated R. Starts October 5th.
We got the call.
They count on their skills.
It's a game or a test?
Could be a bit of both.
They count on their training.
What's it like, the real thing?
It's faster.
On August 8th.
When you fail, and you probably will, you're off the force.
They'll have one reason.
I will give $100 million to whoever gets me out of here.
To count on each other.
That's what we train for.
They're coming out of the woodwork.
SWAT, rated PG-13. In theaters August 8th.
I was raised up to be a gunfighter by a family of gunfighters.
One cop did anything.
You gotta be heartless in my line of work.
To get the job done.
I ain't got a gun! Yeah, you do!
But no one has ever dared to take him on.
I'm going to get your badge.
Until now.
Do you know what you're doing?
Declaring war.
Kurt Russell and Ving Rhames.
This whole city's about to burn.
Dark Blue, rated R, starts Friday, February 21st at theaters everywhere.
Very nice. Well, and yeah, in all fairness, I was more familiar with even the directors of those. Like with Dark Blue, I was more familiar with Ron Shelton. I'm like, yeah, he's the guy who worked on Bad Boys and Bull Durham, isn't he? You know, he's the comedy guy who does occasionally serious stuff with Kurt Russell. And yeah, SWAT, same thing. I was more familiar with actor turned director Clark Johnson, who had done movies like The Sentinel with Michael Douglas and Kiefer, and TV shows like The Shield and Homicide. You know, those hard-boiled tracking shots. And yeah, by the time Street Kings came around, you know, I think Harsh Times was definitely the first one I saw, because I just wanted to see, again, Freddie Rodriguez and Christian Bale do a gritty Dead Presidents kind of movie. And then I went back, saw Training Day, then I saw Dark Blue. My cousins were really into the movie SWAT, but yeah, by Street Kings, when he was teaming up again with James Ellroy, that's where I was like, whoa, you know, Keanu Reeves is back in speed mode, kind of playing a, you know, a deadly police officer, but then there's a twist. You know, he's a bad cop who's redeeming himself, and now he's trying to figure out if someone in his department is framing him or if there's some other foul play going on.
Yeah, I did see Street Kings. That one I came to, you know, I was already familiar with him by then, you know, because I hadn't seen it back when it came out. So then I bought it thinking it was going to be something really fantastic, which, you know, I watched it. I thought, well, it was okay. I'd have to watch it again to like.
No, it's fine. You know, these are all very divisive movies, so that it's not going to be perfect for everybody, you know?
I think that's a film, and I kind of forgot about it. And then until today, I was like thinking about it. I'm like, you know, maybe revisiting that one someday wouldn't be a bad idea.
Well, it's fine. I mean, these movies are interesting in that they're kind of a mixture of like Heat, and then kind of got some Lethal Weapon kind of moments where cops are mouthing off before they go and do a raid. And then, of course, there's a bad apple who's just very nefarious and just very ruthless. I did, when David Ayer finally brought the Fox show Deputy, you know, I was already a big Stephen Dorff fan from Blade and what have you, and when that took off, it only lasted one season, but I went ahead and told him on Twitter, and he actually responded back. I was like, that they should not have canceled your show. It was actually going somewhere pretty cool. So
David Ayer, he responded.
Yeah. He was just like, yeah, I'm not responsible, but
right.
I did my best. So I guess we'll kind of circle through this. Let's start off with Training Day, where rookie Jake Hoyt decides to get into murky waters with vice cop Detective Alonzo Harris, played in an Oscar-winning role by the beloved Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a classic, you know, I mean, like
I see so many people talk smack about it now, and I'm like, why? What has changed? What is so different that
see, when this movie came out, actually I didn't see it till it hit DVD, but as soon as it came out on DVD, I got it. Mm-hmm. And you know, it was right up my alley too, with the whole L.A. You know, criminal underbelly with
L.A. Confidential kind of stuff.
Yeah, well,
Chinatown.
but like a kind of like a more like contemporary, modern. You know what? You know, has like a lot of like the street elements to it. It's got that Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg were in it. It had
but you know, even though they're playing themselves, they're kind of unrecognizable.
Yeah, Dr. Dre was playing like a cop, and then Snoop Dogg was in the wheelchair.
He was a drug dealer in a wheelchair, but I found it interesting because like in any other movie I'd seen him in, he was pretty much just playing himself. But this one was interesting because I don't know if it was just that, you know, Ethan and Denzel were in the room and he felt he was like, I can try and measure up and give a passable performance. You know, I'm going to play a street guy who's being picked on versus I'm going to just be foul-mouthed Snoop Dogg. You know?
I mean, no, his character was pretty interesting. I mean, and there were so many other actors in that film too, like that you haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Like Raymond J. Barry, Tom Berenger.
Fun fact, on the short-lived TV show, which actually chronicled some rookie cops, and Bill Paxton played a former member of the same crooked vice squad that Alonzo had assembled, and they actually wrapped up all the free wise men. Jay Barry came back, Tom Berenger came back, even Nick Chinlin as the crooked cop Tim even showed up as part of the conspiracy, and they actually wrapped it up. They weren't able to continue because Bill Paxton had passed, but I liked how they did kind of a reverse on it. But yeah, the cast is so invaluable in this. You never seen Scott Glenn as a weapons dealer like this. Eva Mendes was on her rise before she became, everyone's favorite beautiful actress. Jamie P. Gomez from Nash Bridges is one of the other crooks, and Raymond Cruz, from Breaking Bad and Clear and Present Danger, just playing a guy named Sniper, which was kind of a tribute to that earlier role. That was cool. But Smiley, the main cartel guy, who would have guessed? You cast a New Zealand actor, Cliff Curtis.
Right. No, there was
done
the whole
gangster
scene
stuff before, but I was just like, he's a New Zealand guy.
Yeah, that whole scene, I remember that was pretty cool. Raymond Cruz, that's who I was trying to think of too, because
he's
he
so
played
scary
so many,
in this. Oh my god,
so many bit parts in like 90s action movies too. Like he was in The Rock, he was in even Broken Arrow for like a split second.
I think that's why I liked him, because while he could do the thug roles and cop roles really well, but then he could do all those Marine roles and all those awesome Die Hard inspired action movies. He's even the delivery guy in Gremlins too.
I think he was also in Under Siege, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, he's one of the Marines, I think, who take it over. I think he's not in Executive Decision, but he would have been perfect there. He was really killing it on the closer TV shows as a hardened LAPD guy, but to see him do that back to back with Breaking Bad and then all those action movies and then this is just like that, and then giving these roles more than you would even think. Like he's not just like Jenny Trejo where he's a cool character actor, but he kind of has become so established. He kind of speaks for himself. He kind of really, you never know where he's going to go with it, if he's going to be in your face or more reserved or emotional. You never know.
Yeah, no, I definitely think he's a good actor. I mean, he's somebody that, even if it was a small role, like in Broken Arrow, I mean, he literally, as far as I remember, he was only in like one scene in the whole movie where he was giving and he was like some army guy, and he was like giving a rundown of what would happen if the nuclear bomb had gone off or something. And
absolutely. And I see people talk smack even about the ending, and I'm like, see, to me, this is a modern day High Noon where they're all gunfighters and they're all, Jake is letting all the corruption get to him while Alonzo is like, hey, I'm a do as I say, not as I do kind of guy. I got no double standards. And all the townspeople, which are basically in this ghetto LA neighborhood, are just basically like, we're done with all you guys. You're goofing up all our stuff.
No, I heard, because Antoine Fuqua, obviously, I mean, that he wasn't quite as big back then because he was still kind of getting started. I mean, he'd done The Replacement Killers.
Yep, and Bait, and this is a step up from Bait.
Yeah. I mean, this is like,
I had seen Tears of the Sun, King Arthur, and Shooter by then. But yeah, much like Ayer, I went back to their earlier stuff in the early days of IMDb in the 2000s, and would you consider even Brooklyn's Finest to be kind of a spin-off of this in a way? If Jake became a dirty cop and moved to New York.
It's very similar. Brooklyn's Finest was really good. I mean, that was definitely
so underrated.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Antoine Fuqua films after like.
Now that one he did actually say he was. I know he says he's definitely inspired by old westerns, kind of like Walter Hill, but then he's also very heavily inspired by stuff like Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But looking back, to see, okay, David Ayer, wrote this film, and then, okay,
he said they changed very little. they changed very little, believe it or not. Like the only thing they had to do was actually change the ending because Denzel originally got away, and he was like, "Nah, yeah, you're right. We got to change that. We don't want to glamorize the villain."
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of whether you glamorize the villain or not, I think the ending that they chose for the final ending, which spoiler alert, but
Mm-hmm.
he gets gunned down by the Russians,
Scarface style, and it's interesting too because it's a very creepy role. It reminds me a lot of Tupac and Juice, like just a man who is just. It's like he knows he's doing bad things, but they're so second nature to him. He's just like, "What are you gonna do? You can't touch me."
I think, like, if you notice, like by the end of the film, he's starting to unravel. He's
Yeah,
he's not keeping his cool as much as he had been throughout most of the film.
no,
He's getting to the point where he's like scared, and like
he kind of is. He's very.
and it's like,
I don't know how you describe it. It's kind of like he's insecure now because he's like, "Oh, okay,
yeah.
you're not as dumb or gullible as I thought you were when you first started."
So I think if he were to kind of weasel himself out and escape, you know, after the whole scene where he had the opportunity to kill Ethan Hawke when he went to his house and stuff, and then even the gangsters they put their guns down or something, like they weren't going to listen to him anymore. So he kind of lost his power.
Apparently, in the original script, I think there was even a rumored shot where the Three Wise Men actually, at the end of the movie, were supposed to come up and intimidate Jake, and Jake was supposed to actually say, "I don't fear you guys. I already took down your main,
Oh yeah,
your main side gun, which is Denzel. He's getting money for them." But I love how. Yeah, he's doing all kinds of stuff. He's basically bullying Jake into belonging, and it's kind of like when you're in an actual gang, he's just like, okay, I guess whatever I got to do, I got to take a bullet for the team. And it's cool how he puts it together, especially when they do the raid on Roger, Scott Glenn's place, so they can steal his stash. Where he's like, whoa, you were going to use me as a body shield? What if I died? Fuck you, dude. And then I think, yeah, like you say, when he reminds himself of his pregnant wife who could be threatened at any time, then he's just like, he basically wakes up. He's like, this is all wrong. This was supposed to be a simple, 24-hour shift. And I kind of wish we could have seen more of the Russians, but the way Denzel describes them as his Alonzo character is pretty powerful. He's like, I beat one of their gamblers senseless. They never forgot it. Now I owe them whatever I stole from one of their bookies. And when the Russians come in, it is kind of funny. I forgot what one of them says. I think they're just like, die, in disgrace or some shit. I'm like, whoa, they're not.
They weren't playing around. I mean, that's the perfect ending because like he had lost his power by that time. He was like I said, kind of like unraveling. His power was gone. He was starting to become afraid or whatnot. So boom, like you're not going to escape. You're not going to get away with that money. You're going to get get caught at the stoplight by the Russians. So
right. When they were making the TV show and they brought Jerry Bruckheimer in and as well as Ayer and Fuqua back, I recommend it. It's not available anywhere, but if you ever see it on a third-party site, just download all the episodes and watch them. But they originally were going to have Ethan Hawke come back and have him be Jake, but if he were now corrupted, and Ethan Hawke disagreed with that concept. But personally, I thought it would have brought a little extra levity to it. But it was still a fun show, I thought, just because it was kind of more like The Equalizer in a way. Is like two cops policing each other and then finding some other corruption. But overall, I mean, I think this and The Negotiator were both just very prominent around that period at just showing that you could make some cool post Serpico type just dirty cop movies that also have a very well organized heist as well as some other cool cat and mouse. Like, in a way, I have seen even people kind of compare this Denzel and Ethan's chemistry as kind of being like the Dark Knight in a way. The Joker and Batman, or even Silence of the Lambs, where it's just two leads trying to literally, knock each other off the screen. It's just that powerful performance, So I guess that brings us, after Ayer did some rewrites on the first Fast and Furious, he came up with this other sleeper film that was Dark Blue, with Kurt Russell as a dirty cop during the 1992 LA riots. Well,
yeah, I remember. I mean, this one I saw too many years back without realizing, who he was.
It was a sleeper for MGM. It didn't make much money, but it was very well liked by Roger Ebert and company. I remember kind of like how Training Day was on USA Network all the time. This one was often on FX late at night, and I was familiar with Scott Spearman from those Underworld movies and Mika Michelle from ER, but this was interesting too, because like you say, they continued their trend of having rappers in the movie. They had Master P in a brief role, and Kurupt as one of the thugs hired by the crooked commander to kill the rookie cop, and same kind of deal. It's kind of a copy and paste, but once you get into the layers and you find out that James Ellroy, LA Confidential writer, came up with the original story, it's still pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, the premise was very fascinating, I would say. Excuse me, because it had those ties to reality. It had historical ties to the 92 riots in LA, the Rodney King riots,
and they're all
this.
It was very carefully handled. Like, like it's happening while they're doing their own investigation, and you never seen Kurt Russell be a bad cop who's trying to redeem himself. You've seen
it was the perfect backdrop for an LA cop movie.
Oh, totally. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've already seen him in anti-hero roles, but Snake Plissken much, but never to the point where I was like, but here he's playing a guy who's an ass kicker, but he's also, he knows his breaking point. He has a self-awareness.
Yeah, that's another film I'd have to watch it again, because it's been a long time, but it's something I watched more than once.
Oh, totally. I think you'd love the updated Blu-ray treatment.
Yeah, I thought about buying it on Blu-ray actually, but what I did do is I bought it on DVD a few years ago, because prior to that I had it on VHS.
Oh, no. Oh, nice.
Wait from, I mean, that would have been toward the very tail end of VHS, but
yeah, by 05, they stopped it, apparently. I saw an article one time where it said A History of Violence was the last one they ever released on VHS.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, the last one I remember, it was like late 04 was the last I remember. I think I rented Collateral on VHS, the Michael Mann film.
Oh, that's a good contrast, because 02 to 04 really does blur, because that was kind of where people were still watching like edgy TV, and pre-streaming, we were still having to figure out, what do we want to get from Blockbuster? It's movie night.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small-town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
There are things we wish to forget.
What's it like to just straight up whack them?
Things we hope to become.
I want you on my team. What exactly would I be doing?
And things
One boy!
Leave him alone!
we cannot control.
What's your problem, psycho?
From the creator of Training Day.
You're like my brother.
Christian Bale, Freddie Rodriguez, Eva Longoria.
You're crazy and you're dangerous, and my biggest nightmare is you with the badge.
Harsh Times. Rated R. Only in theaters November 10th.
Who are we? You straight nightmare.
On the streets of L.A.
I could not be prouder of my men.
Every cop wants justice.
There are 2 cop killers out there. You can get these guys.
But how they get it
These dudes is monsters, man.
is what sets them apart.
Show me. You expect me to leave my car in the hood?
So we're just gonna go in there and kill them?
No, I'm gonna ask them some questions. Then we're gonna kill them.
Street Kings. Rated R. Friday, April 11th.
I am Police Officer Brian Taylor. This is my partner.
I'm in my chonies.
I know, dude. Come on. We work the toughest divisions in the LAPD.
I got him. Try to run. Pit him, man. Pit him. Boom!
Everybody here is pretty much family.
Hey, partner. What's up? ¿Hablas inglés o español?
Good! You good, partner?
I'm good.
LAPD!
Policía!
Oh, my God.
Cartels are operating here. Watch out for these guys. They operate by a different set of rules.
Why do they call you Big Evil?
Because my evil's big.
Hey, my brother. I would lay down my life for you, dude.
Word is, we got a hit on y'all, man.
We're cops. Everybody wants to kill us.
We're shooting our way out of here, bro.
1, 2, 3.
End of Watch. In cinemas November 23rd.
0203 was a cool year, man, because it was apparently released in festivals in 02, Dark Blue, and then it finally got a wider release in 03. But by that time, we had other similar movies like Narc and A Man Apart.
Oh yeah, I remember both of those. I mean, Narc. That's another one I'd have to watch again because that was one that had been, I came across it and I was so hyped to see it, and it kind of, to me, it didn't blow me away like I thought it would. But
yeah, I was kind of the same way too, where I was like, okay, they say it's amazing. I'm like, it's kind of predictable, but it's very well acted and shot. It's kind of it's more enjoyable for the mood versus the content, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I saw it I think just once. I mean, as for A Man Apart, that one I enjoyed. I mean, that was kind of a little bit different for Vin Diesel, I thought at the time.
Yeah, same deal. Like, I didn't wake up to it right away, but when I thought about it, I'm like, but he really grew as an actor here versus before he went back to doing franchise roles like Fast and Furious and Riddick.
Yeah, and it had like Lorenz Tate was in it. And,
yeah, Lorenz Tate was a really shining point in that. And if anyone wants to check out the Power TV shows, he is amazing as that crooked politician. It's a really neat show, especially for fans of stuff like Menace to Society and New Jack City.
Speaking of Menace to Society, because I mean, obviously that's where Lorenz Tate really.
Oh yeah, Zodog.
I think most people would associate that film as like his best known work, but
yeah, the Hughes Brother one's definitely that in.
They're having a 30th anniversary special. It's coming up real soon. I think it's in, for whatever reason, it's in Cleveland, Ohio, I believe.
I think they shot it there. I think maybe.
No. They filmed it on location in Watts, California, L.A.
That's wild.
I don't know what's going on in Cleveland, but
interesting.
Tyrone Turner, who played Kane, is going to be there, and
Sweet.
MC8, who was in the film and also on the soundtrack, as well as Spice One, who's on the soundtrack. They're doing like a concert, like a 30th anniversary tribute concert.
Oh, okay. So it's
Well, I think it's tomorrow. Because I remember it's like I think it's the last weekend of November, which it's got to be like tomorrow.
well,
I thought about trying to go down to it, but it's just not going to work. But
yeah, it's pretty far.
that
But
would be a fun time, though.
it does sound very intriguing, especially because it seems very common now. You'll see people are doing poetry sessions as well as other kind of like a variety show. It's like you'll have someone do some music and they in between sessions while they're setting up equipment, they'll stop for a minute and have a brief kind of talking session, which I always love because it gives the show that much more value, and you just love how you're getting to know these talents that you've admired all your life.
Yeah,
fact,
I mean, I'm definitely gonna.
Menace to Society would be a perfect double feature with Training Day, I think.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, from those old school movies like from the early '90s. I mean, Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood. I mean, those were the best ones I felt.
Absolutely. I don't even know why people try to do a comparison between the Hughes brothers and Singleton. They're both so relevant. They get impossibly good performances from once, hard to work with music talents and get them in their comfort zone, and it's just magic.
Yeah. I mean, they're all three. I mean, it's hard to say, which of the Hughes brothers is like really putting in the work, but they're probably both doing it. I mean,
I think it's like the Coen brothers, where
it's like they got to have each other to feed off of. But I was just reading something last night because this is a little bit off topic, but Ernest Dickerson, he had made Juice. He directed Juice.
Yeah,
and then,
great cinematographer turned director who's still working. Yeah,
and then he did that movie called Surviving the Game with Ice-T.
Yes, he did. He's now doing all kinds of other stuff. He did Demon Knight. He's worked on other shows like Godfather of Harlem and Bosch, which I also recommend for anyone who has the time. But he does have great memories of working on Juice and all these other hard-boiled thrillers.
Yeah, I mean, Juice it's one of those films that I felt like, and I'd have to watch it again.
No, that's fine. It's been a minute, but that's another one that got a Blu-ray treatment. So with Ayer, so 0203, that was pretty much the busy year where he was just coming in, reshifting movies. I take it you saw the 2003 version of SWAT.
No, actually, that one I did not see.
Okay. Well, so long story short, I didn't see it back then because I kind of thought the trailer was kind of lame and critics weren't too crazy about it. But then when I saw it kind of being evaluated by Roger Ebert and it was constantly on TV, I kind of gave it a chance and I didn't mind it. It's kind of one of those, it's a slow burn Sunday night kind of movie. It's way more Lethal Weapon-ish. It does have a cameo by martial artist Jeff Wincott, and it does make good use of Michelle Rodriguez and LL Cool J. But it was just interesting because, like, apparently the early draft of the script was considered very similar to kind of Die Hard 2, where a group of criminals are trying to get their leader, broken out of, and Colin Farrell's character was written to be very similar to Keanu Reeves's character Jack in Speed. But yeah, it spawned 2 unrelated sequels, and then it was based on the 70s show, which I was never big on, but it's now Neil H. Moritz, who was also the producer in Fast and Furious, later reshuffled it and made it be a 2017 rebooted show with Shamar Moore, and that one is also very fun. But this one I think I just dug because it got sent. I felt like this actually did something for Colin Farrell's career, because I know everyone's like, hey, I like Colin Farrell, but back in 03, he was kind of like Ben Affleck, where people like to kind of mock his bad movie choices, And I felt like kind of like Vin Diesel in A Man Apart, he kind of grew here. He knew how to be kind of subtle and kind of a smart ass and a decent action star. So then this brings us to Harsh Times, which
Yeah.
I've seen people describe as Christian Bale's Taxi Driver. Yeah.
Yeah. That movie, I mean,
You can't take your eyes off it. You're watching all these despicable guys, and much like Training Day, they're in the car a lot. Only this time, he's a former Army Ranger, from the Gulf War. He's on his luck. He's suffering from PTSD, and he pretty much offends everybody with his motor mouth, and his best friend is trying to find him work, and he's basically failing every test.
Yeah.
And yet you somehow are wondering maybe he's going to redeem himself. Oh, he just got in a fight with a bunch of gangbangers. This is not going well.
Real quick,
Sure.
have you heard of that movie called Dirty?
Yes. In fact, when that came out, that around similar time, I was always looking at it. I'm like, is it by the same people? No, it's just got a similar style, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that movie was okay. I remember when I first watched it, I enjoyed it, but it's obviously trying to copy Training Day, you know what I mean? So
Oh yeah, and one critic even noted how the visuals are very much like Man on Fire, where it's a very hard-paced music video kind of style, kind of in your face, and it can be a little headache-inducing sometimes. Where you're like, okay, I get it.
yeah, I mean, it's still not a bad film. It's something
No,
I'll
it's
watch
good. I
again,
just
but
don't.
it's like Training Day light or something, you know?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, 999. I don't know if you ever saw that one. Anthony Mackie and Woody Harrelson. It's kind of very Training Day influenced. A bunch of crooked cops.
No, I have not seen that one.
Well, but tell me how this doesn't not sound like Training Day. A bunch of L.A. Vice Squad guys steal from the Russians and have to pay them back by midnight.
Yeah.
I saw that in theaters with friends, and we enjoyed it a lot. But at the same time, it was very tragic. So we were just kind of like, ooh, that was fun, but it doesn't make you feel good at the end. So Street Kings, I know it's a mixed bag for many. Do you feel like Keanu Reeves grows in this role?
Well, it's hard for me to say, unfortunately, because I only saw it once. And
okay.
I mean, I'd have to watch it again to really be able to answer that question, because
I think it delivers as Tom Ludlow. In fact, one Dallas Morning News critic, I think, described it best, where instead of trying to ape other movies like The Departed and Serpico, this one is kind of more no one is safe kind of approach. And you could kind of at least see that Keanu is kind of going to trying more for just kind of he's actually better in his quieter moments here versus other ones where he's still surfer dude. I'm from Point Break, and Bill and Ted. I saw that Kurt Wimmer was also one of the writers on this, and you might know him from doing other action movies. Like he worked on Law Abiding Citizen, which also David Ayer rewrote, as well as Salt and Equilibrium. And I felt like he delivered similar kind of cool action scenes in this.
Oh yeah. I knew the name. I was like thinking but it's Equilibrium.
Yeah. And Jamie Moss was also one of the co-writers, and he's gone on to do other movies like the sci-fi action Netflix movie, Spectral, the adaptation of Ghost in the Shell, as well as the Gerard Butler submarine film Hunter Killer. But yeah, this was Ayer's first time in the directing chair, and even though he wasn't the writer, he could have fooled me. I just was like, this is an Ayer joint, I really dug Common in this, and as many times as I had seen it, I still have to shuffle it all together. I don't think it's incoherent, but long story short, you're having to, without giving it all away, you're having to figure out who are the bad cops versus who are the imposters, dressed as cops, versus who are the other criminals working for the dirty cops. And Forrest Whitaker as the captain, I really thought was just a ballsy performance, because by that time he had already done The Shield, which was a very similar show to Training Day. It just and I recommend that for anyone who hasn't seen it. But this was I felt like by the time Ayer got to this in Harsh Times, he was just ready to rock and roll. It's like, see, like many filmmakers now, you're not trying to emulate all these people you love, but you have your signature style. And I think I just like Ayer because I don't feel like some of these other Scorsese knockoffs, like he's trying to see how many F-bombs he can put in his script. I really think he's just game to do a very intense movie.
No, you know, once you mentioned that, it reminded me, like, a long time ago, I'd shown one of my friends End of Watch.
Sweet.
And she's actually from California. I mean, she wasn't from L.A., but she was from Ontario, California, which is like not super far from L.A. I think it's like 30 miles or something.
But it's out there.
And, and I remember she mentioned to me, well, let me back up. First of all, I first recommended this movie to a coworker of mine who happened to be this old Russian guy.
Oh, wow.
And he had watched it. And keep in mind, this is a guy who swears all the time. He uses the F word all the time. And then when I asked him, like, did you like it? He said, like, he liked it, but there was too much swearing. And I was thinking,
interesting.
Like, that's kind of weird. So I brought it up to this other girl when we watched it.
Maybe it made him feel dirty or self-aware. Oh, that sounds like me.
She knew this guy, and I was like, yeah, he said there was like too much cursing and it, kind of laughing, you know. And then she was like, well, actually, there is a lot of it, you know. And then I guess technically there is, but
it depends on how you focus on it. Like, at least the profanity sounds like it belongs versus I want to get a R rating.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I never felt like, and maybe it was biased because I liked the movie, but there are movies where you feel like, okay, they just put in the F word 5 times in
some of today's comedies are big offenders where we're not sure how much of that was already in the script versus it's the comedian improvising.
Right. I mean, with End of Watch, I mean, I think it gets, to me, it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like it was, that was excessive, but it didn't feel like forced. It didn't feel like somebody was trying to be cool or something.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Fun fact, this was a big hit for the Emmett Furla production company. You might know them as also being the producers on Narc, Street Kings, and The Irishman. They recently had to close down their production company because they made a lot of very infamous movies with Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson, and Robert De Niro and Morgan Freeman. But they apparently were treating their workers really awful. Like, and this was around the time Bruce Willis actually retired. But this was a big hit for Fox, and I felt like this was cool because this kind of, I started recognizing the logo Open Road, where they produced a lot of stuff like Machete and just other similar movies that are very Heat and Training Day like. Whereas, and whenever I see them in Styx films, I know I'm going to see some kind of 80s, 90s inspired cops and robbers movie. But yeah, no, this made me take Jake Gyllenhaal more serious. You know, I always thought he was just going to be the kid from October Sky, you know, who's in some chick flicks and Brokeback Mountain. And then when I see him in this and Prisoners, I'm like, okay, you win. You got me. You got my trust. Good role for Michael Pena. You know, I've been a fan since I think Crash and Shooter. And by the time he was in this, and then in other ensembles like The Martian and Ant-Man and Cesar Chavez, I was like, okay, you know what? He's going to keep surprising me with all his roles because at least he's doing something different. He's not just playing, you know, smart-ass guy in the background anymore.
No, I mean, this is a movie that, you know, you could watch it again and again. I mean,
and by this time, Cleese Saheed Sloan, who who's been in all of Ayer's movies since Training Day. I don't know if you recognize him.
What's his name?
Clee Sahid Sloan.
I don't recognize the name. I'd have to look him up.
Okay, let me show you a photo of him real fast.
Sure.
If I show you a photo, you're going to be like, oh, he's the guy who gives the gangbanger who gives Jake the gun in the finale of Training Day.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's now an activist, but he used to be a gangbanger, and he's been in all of Fuqua and Ayer's work.
Yeah, no, I know exactly who you're talking about now. Yep. Yeah, because he was in End of Watch. He was in Training Day.
It's just interesting how they just kind of keep reusing him, and you never know where they're going to show up.
I think he was even in the Replacement Killers.
I think he was. I think that was his first, how he got his SAG card, and then he continued from there. He's also in Suicide Squad and Bright, I think. But fun fact, in The Tax Collector, which a lot of people didn't see, but is a like it or hate it kind of movie, very similar to Harsh Times. He actually reprises his character Bone from Training Day in that.
Yeah, this one, I did see The Tax Collector.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm with you. End of Watch is so unrecognizable for everybody. You got freaking Ugly Betty herself, America Ferrera. You got Frank Grillo from Captain America and the Purge movies. You got David Harbour. Everybody is just so unrecognizable. And I think it's just the dialogue gels. We just have time to... These guys are not playing by the rules, but for once they're not bad cops. They're just anti-heroes versus the other ones who, there was a good cop, bad cop. And I like how, once again, Ayer makes use of having them showing how 1 minute they're bored, the next minute they got their adrenaline pumping while they're stopping a 911 call. And they're former Marines, so they're kind of a battalion in a way.
What did you think of Sabotage?
Despite as divisive as it is, I think I dug the serial killer angle and how unrecognizable everybody was. Sam Worthington, Terrence Howard, Joe Manganiello, and Mario Anos. I understand that it's not easy to get on board with everybody because they're all bastards at the end of the day, but I kind of dug how it just gave Arnold a chance to stretch himself.
Yeah, this is another one. I remember the ending was pretty cool, but for the most part, I felt like, I saw it in the theater when it came out, and I thought like, it wasn't, because at that point I said, hey, I got pretty high expectations, this David Ayer movie with Arnold in the lead.
Yeah.
Cop movie. Like, I thought like, man, this one could be something pretty special, but, unfortunately it turned out, I thought it turned out below average, but the ending was pretty cool. If you remember when Arnold, I think it was like, it might have been down in like Mexico or somewhere, but Arnold had the cowboy hat on and stuff. Like,
yeah, he goes to Mexico and he bribes a crooked cop to help him identify the man who murdered his family, and he decides to kill the guys there, and then he knows they're going to be coming for me the rest of my life. But I get it. It's gloomy. It's pretty much a Sam Peckinpah kind of Western in a way. Like, just showing how all these guys, like, they're either turned on all the time, running high on drugs and doing all these sometimes illegal vice squad raids for the DEA, and other times they're just waiting they're having to watch their back because they know they got a target on their back, and all of them had at some point stolen all this cartel money. I get it. It is very bleak, and it's not everyone's likable, really.
Yeah, I mean, Arnold is always likable. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, even if he's the bad guy, he just can't help it. He has too much charisma.
Can't put Arnold in a movie. For me personally, like, he's just infinitely likable. So it's like, but a lot of the other characters weren't. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. I think I just dug how some of them were just all very unrecognizable, especially Harold Perrineau from Oz and The Matrix as the internal affairs Atlanta cop investigating them. But yeah, I mean, I just at least just love how fast paced it is, and how by the end of it, all pretty much half the DEA dirty, agents are all trying to kill each other and get their piece of the money. And Arnold's like the only one who's like, oh my God, guys, I gave you the world. Why are you trying to kill each other? And I mean, we took down all these badasses. We broke some rules and we took their money. My family got, killed by this cartel. And one of them happened to be a serial killer. And you guys are still trying to kill one another and bribe and ransom. If I had to rewrite it, I think I would have just had to be more focused on Arnold and had more of the team. Maybe just had there be like free members of the team instead of that, because there were a lot to keep track of after a while. I'm like, who's who? Oh shit, that guy.
I'm glad looking back, I'm glad that The Last Stand was like Arnold's comeback movie for his after he was the governor, because that one was
that was fun.
That was a fun movie. I mean, it wasn't like It's True Lies or Commando or anything like that, but it was
like
still,
a racer.
It was really fun kind of comeback vehicle for him. Totally. And then after he did that, okay, let's sabotage. If that had been the comeback vehicle, that would have been not the best choice. But I think he did it in the good order to do The Last Stand first,
right before going back to Expendables and Terminator. I do recommend Maggie. It's more just a sci-fi drama, but
I think I saw that one actually. Yeah, it was like a drama. Yeah, wasn't there something to do with like zombies in it or something?
Yeah,
like
it was zombies, but not even in a Resident Evil or George Romero way, and more of a just what would you do if you knew, kind of like I Am Legend in a way. It was like, what would you do if your, beloved daughter was infected and there's nothing you can do to stop her except ease her pain.
Yeah, I did see that one. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, again, critics didn't really see it. They just gave him some good reviews, and his fans were kind of disappointed. Oh, we want to see him, take out a gun. I'm like, it's not that kind of movie.
Well, right. One movie, not to get off topic again, but one movie I want to revisit of his is Collateral Damage, because
sadly, I don't think it's held up very well. It's kind of like Columbiana, where it has a cool premise, but it kind of squanders it in cliches. But
I remember like when it came out, I know it was delayed after 9/11 and stuff, and then
if anything, I think you'd enjoy Eraser more.
Oh well, yeah, Eraser is a movie that I've been watching that one for years, and that one, that one is something. I showed my wife. I showed my wife Eraser a few years back. She never seen it. She actually liked that one.
I think just because he has a good charisma with all the villains and the other heroes.
That was still like, I don't know, like that, like the whole ending. It was still kind of at the tail end of that real like Arnold larger than life type of
he was definitely winding down. Yeah,
where he was using the two rail guns, and it's just something that you wouldn't really buy a lot of other actors doing, but Schwarzenegger can do it.
He somehow was able to carry it, even though if the material didn't work in his favor. I think you would dig, if you haven't seen it yet, I think you'll dig Fubar, which is kind of again, playing up the whole True Lies kind of formula.
That one I have not seen.
Yeah, it's a 8-episode show. There's a lot of comedians in it who you're going to recognize from everywhere. Mindy Project, The Office, Community, even Scott Thompson from Kids in the Hall.
What did you think of Bright?
Okay, going back to Ayer, that one, I will admit, Suicide Squad's obviously a DC one, not part of this timeline. This one felt kind of like many of the Netflix movies where it had a cool idea, but it kind of had some dead space in there, and you could kind of tell the budget was limited. But I know they announced a sequel and they never really made it, but I felt like it could have been improved. Like it could have worked better as a
it
show.
was like there were some elements I liked. You know, it had the whole LA setting, cops and this and that, but then it was like it didn't fully mesh with the whole like fantasies kind of thing with like whatever that blue guy was, like an orc or something like that. Like,
yeah, I remember that even Will Smith and the others were saying it's Alien Nation meets Lord of the Rings, and I just felt like a lot of the rap music was also playing too loud the way it was mixed, so you couldn't hear half of what the characters were saying.
It was like a Netflix exclusive, right? I mean,
and yeah, I found it watchable, but I can't recommend it to everybody.
Fury was good. Totally different.
Oh yeah,
element. You know, World War II. Well, that was a good movie.
World War II B picture. Yeah, just everything you like in the movies. Saving Private Ryan, Casualties of War, showing that the hardened leader is both heroic and kind of a war criminal, and just showing giving you an idea of what it might have been like at the end of World War II if you were in a tank battalion. But yeah, I saw that in the theater with my brother. We were blown away by it. Once again, Michael Pena's in this again. He's the driver. But yeah, Brad Pitt's totally unrecognizable in this, and getting even all the other young fantasy, actors in this, I thought was interesting too, because somehow, much like many of these filmmakers, Spielberg, Scorsese, even blockbuster guys like Michael Bay, somehow Ayer is able to get these guys out of their shell and have them turn in very unusual but intriguing performances. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, and to kind of answer the question that you threw out there at the beginning, and I'm sure you would probably agree that he's crafted his own flavor, his own kind of.
It probably is his military experience being a.
He's not, the next guy trying to be Tarantino or something like that. So.
Maybe it's just he's a former U.S. Marine, so he's somehow ready to organize and shout out orders.
Yeah, and I think he lived out in L.A. for quite a long time too.
He did. I remember he had some cool interviews where he talked about hanging out with other people in East L.A. and getting their thoughts, especially because he wanted to do the city justice. He didn't want to have it ever look cartoonish, much like Collateral. He did want it to kind of, the background of the movie is as much a character. The setting is just as much in your face as all the characters are.
Yeah, ironically, I think he's. Well, I know Michael Mann. I believe Michael Mann was from Chicago originally, but
yeah,
I think David Ayer was also originally from the Chicago area, if I'm not mistaken. But
let's look it up. David Ayer, born. Yep, you're right, and Champaign, Illinois. So pretty close, but
yeah, but I would have to read up his bio to tell you.
Grew up in Minnesota, apparently.
Really? Okay, Minnesota. Okay,
but yeah, he spent some significant time everywhere there. It's just altogether, most of these movies are streaming on most platforms. You can probably find most of them on Netflix or HBO Max. I think everyone should give them a try, even though they're, again, not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Right. I mean, yeah, you'd have to be, not to say somebody couldn't just wander in and enjoy one of his films, and obviously stuff that's like Fury or whatever, I mean, something that's kind of different from his usual stuff, but yeah, for like those, I think any kind of fan of crime movies, police cop movies,
if you like
anything like
shows,
that.
Especially if you're into Miami Vice, all the Law and Orders and the Shield kind of shows, you'll like these. If you're
Yeah,
into
L.A. gang stories that involve like that kind of
absolutely
criminal aspect of L.A. and its surrounding neighborhoods and stuff. It's just something. He does it well. He does it really well.
If you're a fan of all these actors, obviously they're all firing on all cylinders. They give very unrecognizable performances, especially. Don't get me wrong. I've seen plenty of people who will say, Harsh Times or Sabotage, worst movies I ever saw. I'm like, okay, yeah, to each their own. But if you like other early 90s kind of just action movies, again, like The Negotiator or even Extreme Justice, or some of those other Lethal Weapon, but kind of a little more serious, like 48 Hours, I think many will like these.
Harsh Times kind of surprised me because when I saw that, I didn't know who he was.
Oh, really?
And my first, I sat down to watch it, and my first thought was, I don't know if I'm going to like this movie.
Right.
But it quickly turned it on me, where it didn't take very long at all before I was really enjoying the movie. And I was like, okay,
with a war scene.
I was wrong. This movie's good. So
to be fair, it is kind of like Dead Presidents, where it starts off with warfare, and then then it resorts to the character returning back home, and you're not sure if it's all going to go to shit or not. But yeah,
Dead Presidents, man, that was a good movie too.
Oh, totally.
That was the Hughes brothers, right? So
yep. We could totally do another Hughes special.
Didn't they do? Was it Sleepy Hollow that they made, or was it?
Oh,
what was the one movie?
That was Tim Burton. They did Book of Eli though.
Well, didn't they do? Sorry, they did some movie I thought with Johnny Depp, didn't they?
Oh, they did From Hell.
Yeah. That's it. Okay,
where
yeah. For some reason, I get that in Sleepy Hollow, like in my memory, like I confuse those two sometimes. I don't know why.
Back when Johnny Depp did a lot of experimental kind of sci-fi movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I saw Sleepy Hollow. I don't know if I saw the other one or not.
Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff to revisit. I do it too. Sometimes I mix up certain movies just because they have similar covers.
Yeah. That's one of those movies where it's just like, for some reason, it's like, I'm always, because it's been so long since I even saw Sleepy Hollow, and I don't remember for sure if I saw the other one or not. So it's kind of like, it's just one of those movies that gets stuck in my memory, and then I got to get it confused.
Yeah, you'll sort it out eventually.
Yeah, definitely.
This has been great having you on as always, just because when we get into it, it's just kind of interesting just seeing just hard to talk about subject matter meets, a very atmospheric rap soundtrack meets all these other kind of noir and, popcorn excitement. Where can we find you on the interwebs?
Well, Instagram, Twitter, and all that stuff. I mean, I don't really use Twitter. I used it, but I don't really. I use it kind of more. I visit it more than I tweet or anything like that. I mean, I definitely tweet stuff, but I don't tweet anything that important. I just kind of usually I use it to ask questions and stuff like that.
Kind of forward some
usually towards Mortal Kombat and stuff like that, but yeah, Instagram, I use that, I always use the name Siu Long 1270. It was Bruce Lee's name, his Cantonese name, Siu Long, and then My sister used to use that name on like AOL Instant Messenger or something like that, back in the 90s. So that's where I got that name from.
Gotcha.
Because she was the first one, like I'm sure I mentioned before, she introduced me to Bruce Lee movies when I was about 10.
Gotcha.
And she also introduced me to rap music when I was about 7. So
oh, sweet. Hey.
You know what I mean? Like, so I mean,
a lot of
man from her growing up in terms of what I thought was cool and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Mortal Kombat as well. So
yep, all the martial arts and video games. Oh, good times.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up